It all started on a late Friday evening. David sat alone at his kitchen table, scrolling through house listings that all had the same punishing message. Every house was either crazy overpriced or a real dump. It was demoralizing to see, and it made David more sad than excited about his future. But then he saw something odd. David's mouse click led him to a realtor website he had never noticed before during his house hunting journey. It didn't have many homes to offer, but one listing caught his eye instantly. It showed a small island with a neat little house in the center. And the strangest part was that it was priced at just $1. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. David laughed softly, thinking the listing must have been a mistake or a joke website set up by some tech-savvy kids. But as he delved deeper into the pictures and description, he couldn't argue with the fact that everything looked strangely legit. That price must be a dumb typo, David said to himself. David laughed quietly and clicked on every bit of information, expecting to find hidden fees or fine print that would explain the absurd price. Yet everything looked normal and clean. So, in a half-joking mood, he placed a bid of $1, assuming nothing real would ever come from such a strange offer. He went to bed without thinking much about it, but early the next morning, his phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. When he played it, a calm voice informed him that his bid had been accepted and that the island and house on it could legally become his property. What the hell? The message instructed him to come to a notary's office in a nearby town that same morning, where he would sign the deeds and receive the keys. This was all so unexpected, and not to mention crazy fast. Normally, weeks would go by before he even got a call, telling him his offer was rejected. But now he was apparently the owner of an entire island overnight, and all of it for the small price of just $1. David called the number back. But the notary said the exact same thing he said on the voicemail. He congratulated David and told him to come over somewhere that morning. And although it sounded unreal, it wasn't like he had any other plans for the day, so it couldn't hurt to have a look. After breakfast, David started his car and drove to meet the notary. He shook the hand of an elderly man in a suit, who was clearly prepared for his arrival. The notary guided him through the paperwork with steady hands, repeating all the details David also found online, even the strange asking price of $1. David asked many questions about the island, the house, and the previous owner, trying to understand why anyone would give away such a place for almost nothing. But the notary gave short answers and admitted he knew little, only what the former owner had provided him. And he was very clear about the asking price. He demanded that I sell his entire estate for just that $1. All of this only made David more curious. What's wrong with this place? The notary paused and looked at David. He explained that he was under strict instructions and, unfortunately, couldn't tell much else. According to the seller, you will understand everything once you get to the island and the house. I don't know what that means, but that was what he told me, the notary said. After signing the documents, David was handed a set of keys and an address that led to a small pier at the edge of a wide lake. David was also told that the deal included a motorboat that he could use to travel between the mainland and the island whenever needed. With the keys in his pocket and a sense of disbelief, David left the office and began the 2-hour drive to the lake. David's mind moved between excitement and suspicion as he tried to imagine what kind of place he had bought for almost nothing without ever seeing it in person before. When David arrived at the quiet pier, he could see the island in the distance. A small forest covered one side, while the house stood clearly in the middle. It felt strange knowing it all belonged to him now. After a brief pause, he started the boat and headed toward the island. The water remained still as the boat moved forward. As he got closer, more details appeared. The trees looked dense and untouched, and the house stood alone near the shore. From the outside, it seemed normal, even inviting, but something about it felt off. When he reached the dock, David tied the boat carefully. The silence was overwhelming. There were no signs of life, no movement, not even distant sounds. He stepped onto the island and followed a narrow path leading toward the house. With each step, his alertness grew. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no wind, nothing. It made him uneasy. The house looked well maintained, with clean windows and fresh paint, despite its unusual colors. It seemed ready to live in, which only made the $1 price more suspicious. At the front door, he hesitated before unlocking it. The key turned smoothly, and the door opened without resistance. revealing a quiet, tidy interior. Inside, everything appeared normal. A table stood in the center with a single chair slightly pulled back. Still, something felt wrong, though he couldn't explain it. As he approached the table, he noticed a folded piece of paper placed neatly in the middle. Unlike the dusty surface beneath it, the paper was clean, as if it had been placed there recently. David picked it up carefully and unfolded it. His chest tightened as he read it. The note addressed him by name, which immediately alarmed him, since he had only bought the house the night before. Beneath his name was a single sentence. "Go to the back door inside my study to find out the truth about this place." Confused, David folded the note and began searching the house. It was larger than he expected, with several rooms, none of which seemed like a study at first. Eventually, he reached the back of the house and found a closed door at the end of a hallway. When he opened it, he knew instantly he had found the study. The room was large, filled with bookshelves stretching from floor to ceiling. Sunlight entered through wide windows, illuminating the space. It clearly belonged to the previous owner. But something was wrong. According to the note, there should be another door inside the study, but there wasn't. Frowning, David stepped further inside and carefully examined the room. The shelves were packed with books, most covered in dust. However, one section stood out. It looked recently disturbed. He moved closer and ran his fingers along the books. Unlike the others, this section was cleaner. Someone had been here recently. Curious, he pulled out one of the books. As it came free, he felt a slight movement behind the shelf. It was subtle but unmistakable. David pulled out one of the books from that cleaner section, expecting nothing more than an old story or journal. But when the book came free, he felt a slight shift behind the shelf. It was subtle, but enough to make him stop and focus. Something was hidden behind here. David placed the book aside and pressed gently against the back of the shelf. At first, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, part of the shelf shifted inward. His heart began to race as the hidden mechanism revealed itself. Slowly, a section of the bookshelf slid aside, exposing a narrow doorway behind it. The opening was just wide enough for one person. Beyond it, there was only darkness, silent and unsettling. David hesitated. Every instinct told him to leave, to forget everything and walk away. But he had already come too far. He took out his phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped inside. The air felt colder and heavier. The beam revealed a narrow hallway with gray concrete walls and exposed pipes. Wires ran along the sides, disappearing deeper into the darkness. Unlike the bright, colorful house above, this place felt serious, hidden, and intentional. The hallway stretched farther than expected, sloping slightly downward. After a few steps, David realized he was now below the island's surface. As he moved forward, his light caught something ahead, a thick metal door, slightly open. From the gap, a faint flickering light escaped. Then he heard it. A soft, old sound, mixed with laughter. Children laughing. The sound felt strangely familiar. David pushed the door open. Inside was a small room with a simple cinema setup. A projector played onto a large screen, and on that screen, it was him. A video from his childhood. He watched himself running through sprinklers, laughing, playing with his dog. The images felt real, personal, like memories brought back to life. He was so focused on the screen that he didn't notice he wasn't alone, until a voice spoke. "I'm glad you could make it, David." A chill ran through him. He turned slowly. A man sat on a couch in the center of the room, facing away. The voice felt familiar. The man stood and turned around. "Dad?" David froze, overwhelmed and confused. His father, James, looked older, worn, but calm. He explained everything. Years ago, he had stayed away on purpose, believing it was the only way to protect David from a complicated past. Even though it hurt, he watched his son grow from a distance. The island had always belonged to his family. It became his refuge, the only place where he could live in peace while carrying his regrets. Then came the truth. The house listing had been fake, carefully arranged, sent directly to David. The notary who handled everything was part of it. And the documents David signed weren't just for buying the house, they were for accepting his father's inheritance. James had planned everything. Because he was dying. He only had a few months left. This was his way of bringing his son back into his life. David stood there, trying to process it all. But instead of anger, he stepped forward and hugged his father. They spent his final months together on the island, until James passed away, leaving everything behind to his son for the symbolic price of $1.